And they talk about in every Passover next year in Jerusalem. That's part of the ceremony. Next year we'll do this in Jerusalem. Next year we'll do this in Jerusalem. They say that. It's to say, because this is where we should be doing it. If there was a Jewish temple right now, just pretend. Because that's all you can do. You can pretend. But if there were, Jews would fly from all over the world to be there, buy their lambs, probably at the marketplace, very much like Jesus did, probably around the temple too. Have them slaughtered, professionally cooked, roasted, and they would eat that. That's what they would have to do. It's hard to imagine that nowadays, but that's exactly what they would do. So, and I'm sure you're all very aware of this. Our Good Friday is their Passover. Good Friday is Passover for Jews.
This year.
Yes.
This year.
Yeah.
This year or always?
It should be always. If I'm not, if it isn't, it's almost always near it. It's within a week. But the whole idea of the celebration of Easter, the whole definition of Easter, is to follow the Jewish calendar, at least in the Roman world, in the Roman Rite. Eastern Orthodox celebrate a different Easter than we do. It's either before or after ours. Sometimes it's at the same time. We celebrate those times when we celebrate together. But the definition of Easter, and I've said this before, does anyone remember it?
The first Sunday after the first moon, first full moon.
Right.
After the first day of spring.
That's it. The first Sunday after the first full moon after the first day of spring. So when was spring? Last week. It was March 22nd. So we've had a full moon since then, and that's why this Sunday we have Easter. So if the full moon doesn't occur till almost 20 days after spring, then that's when we have Easter. If it occurs right afterwards, that's when we have, so that's why it always changes, because it's dependent on the lunar cycle, not the solar cycle.
There's a time when Jews slaughter a whole bunch of chickens. Do you know what that's for? I worked at a place where there were Jews close by, and they were slaughtering, and it was one time of year.
Do you remember what season it was?
No, I don't.
Because the only thing I can think of, because it wouldn't be now, it wouldn't be Passover, it would probably be Purim, but I would be guessing.
Is that more in the fall?
It's more in the spring, actually. Well, no, Purim. It's more like September, yeah. Purim is a celebration that Jews commemorate when Esther, Queen Esther, saved her people by exposing the plot to kill her people. And the king of Persia relented from exterminating the Jews, basically. And as a result of her heroism, they commemorate it with the Feast of Purim. So I'm looking at the time. I want to make sure that we have a good amount of time for our video treat. So this is Holy Week. This is our Lord on the way to the cross. I love this picture. Of course, this is from the Passion. And this is Jesus meeting Mary, and you know what he says to her at this point? Look, Mother, I'm making all things new. And that's exactly what he did at that point. He's making all things new. And I find that such an irony. It's an irony because you don't see it immediately. This looks like the same old stuff on this earth. Innocent man, kangaroo court trial, the rich and powerful getting away literally with murder, You know, the helplessness of the crowd, the all-powerful Roman Empire, and he's making all things new. What are you talking about? It's because you don't see it. But if you have eyes, like the Lord's eyes, you can see this is all new. It's at this point of history turns. Literally, the world history turns on this point. And we're still feeling the effects of it even today. All things are becoming new because of Jesus. So, I want to get to our video, which is about the Shroud of Turin. And I'm choosing this video because it's old, not because it's old, because I'm choosing that, but because I keep talking about people want to know the history. Where did it come from? What's its relationship to everything? And I want you to see the connections that are here. We may have to go a little bit past 9, so I hope not, but I want to get started with this. Let me see if I can jump to a good point. Let's start here. Hit the light dropper.
Behind those bars, locked away, is an iron box. Inside the box is a silvered casket. Inside the casket, a piece of cloth 14 feet long. A cloth which bears the mysterious imprint of a crucified man. A cloth said to be the very shroud which wrapped Christ's body in the tomb nearly 2,000 years ago.
Che qui, su questo altare, dal 1694,
Since 1694, the Holy Shroud of Turin has been kept here, high above the altar of the Royal Chapel of Turin Cathedral. It is owned by the ex-King of Italy, Umberto of Savoy, whose ancestors, the Italian Dukes of Savoy, built the shrine especially for it. It is regarded as so holy, it has been shown publicly only 4 times in the last 100 years.
magnifica reliquia. Ed è per questo che noi dobbiamo essere grati a
It seems incredible even to suppose that the linen cloth in which Jesus was wrapped in the tomb could have survived to this day, and even more incredible that it could bear an image of Christ as he appeared after the crucifixion. But that is the claim we're about to examine. In the 20th century, we've come to rely on science to give us simple answers to what before were universal mysteries or questions of faith. And now, after many years, we have the results of research into the shroud, carried out here in Turin and by scientists and scholars all over the world.
venivano insieme legati.
And their discoveries have been stranger than anyone could have expected. For 4 centuries, the shroud has been kept here in the North Italian city of Turin, and once every 30 or 40 years, hundreds of thousands of pilgrims have flocked here for those rare occasions when the shroud is publicly displayed, to catch a distant glimpse of the cloth's ghostly image, the image of the front and back of a man laid out in death. incomplete image, but with sufficient detail to convince pilgrims they were looking at the very shroud of Christ. Bloodstains, as of nailing through the feet. And hands. A wound in the side. Trickles of blood as from a crown of thorns. And a back covered with the marks of a savage scourging. But probably, most convincing of all, the unique and eerie quality of the whole image. Also on the cloth are patches from an accident that befell it long before it came to Turin, when the Dukes of Savoy kept it on the other side of the Alps, in France, at Chambéry. This was then the capital of Savoy, and the shroud was kept here in the Sainte-Chapelle. A Duchess Margaret of Austria had bequeathed upon the shroud a silver casket, and to fit inside, the cloth had to be carefully folded several times. Then, in 1532, although the cloth was badly scarred, the image itself was virtually untouched, and nuns were able to sew in the patches visible to this day. Some 80 years before the fire, the Dukes of Savoy acquired the shroud from a French family called de Charnay, who kept it in Liray, a tiny village in the heart of France. This man, Geoffrey de Charnay, exhibited the shroud in Liray in 1389. He inherited it from his father, another Geoffrey de Charnay, a knight killed in battle against the English at Poitiers. And with his death, the chain of certainty about the shroud's origins mysteriously comes to an end. Liray. Why should the burial shroud of Jesus Christ suddenly appear here? Forgery of religious relics was all too common in the Middle Ages, and at the very time of the de Charnays, a bishop actually made this accusation towards the shroud in a forceful letter to the Pope, an accusation revived at the turn of this century, when the shroud may have been dismissed altogether, were it not for an incident that took place in Turin on May 28, 1898.
Subito, subito! Non perdere tempo! Grazie. Sposta la lampada.
That huge box is
For the
called
first
camera.
time, permission had been given to photograph the shroud during one of the rare expositions. And this man, Secondo Pia, was to focus the world's attention on a new and unexpected discovery.
Spingimi avanti. Dai, dai.
A lawyer by profession, Pia was a dedicated enthusiast of the new science of photography, and this was a unique occasion for him.
Avanti, avanti, su. Basta.
In a few days, the shroud would be locked away for another generation.
He's taking a picture.
Preghieri. La cara. Subito.
He's going to develop the film now.
So the shroud is the negative.
Here I discovered that somehow the image on the shroud itself was a negative. Light and shade were reversed. Later and better photographs of the whole shroud confirmed the discovery in even greater detail. The whole body could be seen much more clearly in negative. Was it after all possible that Christ had in some incomprehensible way left behind an image of himself? Certainly it was very difficult to explain how a medieval forger could have concocted a photographic negative some 5 centuries before the first camera. At the very least, the shroud was the oldest and strangest photograph in the world. The sudden availability of detailed photographs meant that medical men could examine closely the apparent wounds of crucifixion.